The first thing Miron noticed was not the girl. It was the way she swung. A soaked wool shirt cracked against a man's skull, and he dropped straight into the mud without a sound. No scream, no warning, just a clean, hard strike. The girl turned back to her barrel like nothing had happened. Water glazed with thin ice, hands red and raw, motion steady. Up, down, scrub, ring. If you've ever seen someone who refuses to break, you already know what Miron saw in that moment. He didn't step in to help. He didn't shout. He just watched. Then he stepped forward. "You speak Russian?" She looked up. Her eyes were pale, washed thin by hunger, but sharp, measuring. "Yes." "One word," she said. Miron nodded once. "I leave 2 days up the mountain. I need hands. Fire, food, no trouble." He kept it plain. No softness, no promise. Her gaze drifted past him. The alley, the mud, the man still lying where he fell. Then back to Miron. "Food? 3 meals, every day." She didn't ask his name, didn't ask where, didn't ask why. She wiped her hands on her skirt, walked into a torn canvas tent, and came back with a single bag tied tight with string. "I am Karolina." "Miron." He turned. "Keep up." The climb began before the sun dropped. A narrow trail cut into stone, pines closing in, wind rising. Miron rode ahead, leading a mule stacked with winter supplies. Karolina followed on a tired mare that stumbled more than it walked. They spoke only when needed. Drink, rest, move. By nightfall, the air cut like broken glass. They stopped under a rock ledge. Miron built a small fire. No smoke, just enough heat to keep the edge off. He tossed her hard bread and salted meat. She ate everything, no hesitation, no complaint. He watched her chew, slow and steady, like someone who had learned not to waste strength. From his pack he pulled a heavy sheepskin and threw it across the fire. It landed at her feet. "Wrap up," he said. "I don't dig graves in winter." She didn't thank him. She pulled it tight around her shoulders and closed her eyes. By morning the trail had turned to ice. By afternoon the wind howled through the ridges, carrying snow in its breath. Miron glanced back more than once. He expected tears, expected doubt, expected her to fall behind. But Karolina kept her eyes forward, hands locked on the reins, jaw set, shoulder shaking from the cold. She never asked to stop. They reached the cabin just before dark on the second day. It stood alone in a clearing. Thick logs, low roof, windows shuttered tight. No smoke, no sound. Miron dismounted and pushed the door open. Cold air spilled out. Inside, the room was small. 1 stove, 1 table, 1 bed built into the wall. Nothing else. Karolina stepped in. She didn't pause, didn't look around. She set her bag down, walked straight to the stove and opened the iron door. Ash. Dead. She grabbed a broom made from pine branches and started sweeping. Dirt, droppings, old scraps. Miron stood in the doorway watching. Something shifted in his chest. Not warmth, not yet. Something quieter. Relief. "I'll stable the animals," he said. "There's wood in the bucket. Get the fire going." That night the wind came hard. It slammed against the walls, clawed at the roof, pressed into every crack. Miron lay in the loft above. Karolina lay on the floor near the stove, wrapped in blankets. The fire burned steady. He listened to the storm, then to her breathing. "Roof holds," he said into the dark. Silence. Then her voice, low and rough. "I am not afraid of wind." Morning came buried, snow packed against the door, white in every direction. Inside the stove roared, coffee ground by hand. Karolina moved without wasted motion. The cabin changed that day, not in size, in weight. They were no longer passing through, they were sealed in. Miron left each morning to check his traps. Karolina stayed. Fire, food, repair. At first the meals were rough, burnt meat, bitter coffee. Miron ate without a word. By the second week the meals held better. By the third they filled the body and stayed. They spoke little. Wood low. "I'll cut." Water ready. Good. But something passed between them. A torn coat appeared mended, stitches tight, strong. Extra dry wood stacked by her bed at night. Coffee poured just the way he drank it the next morning. No thanks spoken,
None needed. The mountain pressed in around them, silence thick enough to hear your own past. Sometimes Karolina would stop moving, stare into the fire, hands gripping her arms tight, breath shallow. Miron never asked. He just kept the fire alive. Because out here, you don't fix what's broken. You keep it from freezing. And one night, as the wind tore at the roof again, Miron lay awake in the loft and realized something he had not planned for. He had not brought a worker up this mountain. He had brought something that did not break, and winter had only just begun. The wolf came at her fast. No warning, no hesitation, just a blur of gray fur and teeth cutting through the snow. Karolina didn't step back. The empty bucket in her hand swung hard, metal cracked against bone. The animal staggered, but it didn't fall. It lunged again, closer this time, teeth snapping at her skirt, tearing wool, dragging her off balance. She dropped the bucket. Her hand found iron. The ash shovel leaned against the wall. She gripped it with both hands and swung. The edge caught the side of the animal's neck. It hit the ground, twisting, snapping, still fighting. Karolina didn't wait. She brought the shovel down again and again until it stopped moving. The snow around her turned dark. Her breath came sharp, fast, cutting her throat with cold air. She stood still for a long moment. Then she dragged the carcass away from the cabin, hung the torn meat back in place, closed the door.
His return, wordless understanding. When Miron returned, he saw the blood before he saw her, a streak across white snow. His steps changed, faster. He reached the clearing with his revolver already drawn. Then he saw her, sitting on a stump, a rag pressed against her wrist, the shovel leaning beside her, the dead wolf dragged aside. He lowered the gun slowly, walked toward her. "It came for the meat," she said, simple, flat. Miron crouched, pulling the cloth from her wrist, a shallow cut, nothing deep. He nodded once. Good, that was all. But that night he placed his rifle closer to where she slept, not by accident. The injury, infection creeping. Weeks passed, the cold deepened, the cabin creaked under it. Wood snapped in the walls as frost dug into every crack. Miron worked farther from the cabin each day, traps set along frozen streams, boots breaking through crusted snow. The injury came quiet, a trap snapping shut, iron teeth biting into his arm. He pried it open, wrapped the wound, kept moving, because stopping out here cost more than pain. By the time he returned, the bleeding had slowed. By the third day, the skin turned dark. By the fifth, a thin red line crept up his arm. Karolina noticed before he spoke. He reached for his cup, missed. Coffee spilled across the table. His legs folded without warning. He hit the floor hard. Karolina was already moving. She dropped beside him, turning him onto his back. His skin burned under her hands. His breath came broken, words spilling from him that made no sense, hands clawing at air that wasn't there. She didn't ask questions, didn't call his name again. She dragged him inch by inch across the floor, every muscle in her body pulling against his weight. By the time she reached the bed, her breath scraped her throat raw. She couldn't lift him, so she built the bed around him. Blankets, hides, anything that held heat. She cut his sleeve open. The wound stared back at her, swollen, wet, wrong. She moved to the stove, fed the fire until iron glowed. Water boiled. The razor came from his chest, the bottle from his supplies. She came back to him, pinned his arm down, poured the liquor into the wound. His body arched. A sound tore from him that filled the cabin. She held him in place, didn't stop. The blade went in, clean, deep enough to open what needed to come out. Dark fluid spilled. She pressed, forced it out, again, until only red remained. She washed it, bound it tight. Then she sat beside him and waited. The vigil, 3 days. The next 3 days stretched long. No sleep, no pause. She fed the fire, carried water, forced broth between his teeth, held him down when he fought what wasn't there. At night, when his body shook so hard the blanket slipped, she lay beside him under the hide, not for comfort, for heat. Her hands steady, her breath slow, keeping him here. On the 4th morning the wind stopped,
Silence returned. Karolina sat by the stove, her head resting against the wall, eyes closed. From the floor a voice came rough. "You burned the coffee." Her eyes opened. Miron stared at her, not lost this time, clear, tired, but there. She stood, walked to the stove, pulled the pot aside. "You did not chop wood," she said. He looked at the stacked pile near the door, then at her hands, wrapped, cracked. He swallowed. "You kept it from falling," he said. She handed him water. "Drink." No more words. Slow recovery, quiet conversations. Recovery came slow. Miron moved like an old man, steps careful, breath short. The cabin closed in around them, no distance now, no outside to escape to. He sat at the table, carving wood just to keep his hands busy. Karolina worked by the fire, mending, cooking, keeping everything moving. The silence changed. It no longer pressed, it settled. One evening he set the knife down. "Who's left for you?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Thread pulled tight through fabric. Then she looked up. "No one." He waited. She held his gaze. Sea took one. Ground took one. Sickness took the rest. Nothing more. She went back to her work. Miron nodded once. That was enough. The rifle, a gift of trust. The next day he brought down his rifle, set it on the table. "Sit." She did. He placed it in her hands. "Hold it here." She adjusted. Too long, too heavy. He took it back, sawed the stock shorter without hesitation, filed it smooth, put it back in her hands. Now, she raised it again. This time it fit, clean, natural. He stepped back. "Tomorrow we shoot." She nodded, ran her hand along the wood, looked at him, said nothing, but something passed between them, not spoken, not named, just there. Outside the snow kept falling, sealing the world away, and inside that small cabin something stronger than winter began to take shape. The intruder, violence at the door. The man didn't knock. The door shook under his boot. "Open up," he shouted, voice cracking through the wood. "I smell food." Inside, Karolina didn't move at first. The spoon rested in her hand. The fire snapped behind her. Another kick slammed the door. "I'll break it." She set the spoon down, crossed the room without sound. The rifle came off the wall, a clean motion. A round slid into place with a sharp click. Outside, Miron rounded the corner of the cabin, his revolver already drawn. "Step back," he said. The stranger turned, face buried in dirt and frost, eyes wide, restless, gun in his hand. "Drop it," the man snapped. "I just want food." Miron didn't move. "Turn around. Walk away." The man laughed, dry, broken. "I ain't walking nowhere." His hand tightened. Before either could fire, the door opened. Karolina stood in the frame, rifle raised, stock pressed tight into her shoulder, eyes locked. "Drop it," she said, her voice steady, flat. The man hesitated, looked at Miron, then back at her. He chose wrong. The gun jerked up. 2 shots split the air. The man dropped hard into the snow, still. Smoke drifted from both barrels. Miron lowered his revolver slowly. Karolina worked the lever halfway, ready again. They stood like that for a moment. Then silence took the mountain back. Miron stepped forward, kicked the gun away from the body, checked. Nothing left to do. He looked at her. She lowered the rifle. "I had him," she said. Miron gave a short nod. "I know." He turned back toward the cabin. "Get inside. Fire's dropping."
Spring came hard. Snow didn't melt, it broke. Ice split across the valley with loud cracks. Water rushed through every low place. Mud swallowed boots. The mountain shifted underfoot. Miron worked outside, fixing what winter had strained. Karolina split wood, hard, steady swings, no wasted motion. She moved different now, stronger, set into the place. Miron watched from the lean-to, hand still, knife resting against the hide he was scraping. Something sat heavy in his chest, not from cold, not from work, from what came next. That evening they sat on the porch, the sky dim, the air softer. For the first time in months, Miron held a leather pouch, turned it once in his hand, then set it on the table between them. Coins shifted inside, heavy. "That's yours," he said.
Karolina didn't touch it. You earned it. She kept her eyes on the pouch, still. Winter's done, he went on. You can go east, find something better. Silence. She stood, slow. You are sending me away. Not a question. Miron looked at her, jaw tight. I'm paying what's owed. She nodded once, then turned, walked into the dark. He stayed there long after, staring at the pouch, at the empty chair, at the space she left behind. Morning came gray. They packed without speaking, loaded the mule, tied down supplies, began the ride down. The trail felt longer, heavier, each step pulling something loose between them. By the third day, the town came into view, mud, smoke, noise rising from below. Karolina stopped her horse, didn't move. Miron rode up beside her. Keep your eyes up, he said. Don't give him anything. She nodded, lifted the rifle across her lap. They rode in together. Men stared, then looked away. Inside the store, the warmth hit first, then the smell, coffee, leather, dried fish. The trader looked up, then froze. Well, I'll be. His eyes moved from Miron to Karolina. You made it. Miron dropped the sacks of fur on a counter. Count it. The trader worked through them, paid in coin, stacked silver and gold across the wood, then looked at Karolina. Town could use someone like you, he said. Clean work, good pay. Miron didn't look up. Karolina didn't hesitate. No. The trader blinked. She stepped forward. Flour, salt, coffee, sugar. The trader looked at Miron. Miron finally lifted his head. Something had changed in his face. Put it on my account, he said. Karolina picked up her pouch, turned, walked out, didn't look back. They camped outside town that night, fire low, the noise of the settlement fading behind them. Miron sat across from her, hands still. The stage leaves in the morning, he said. She poured coffee, handed it to him. Their fingers brushed. You bought winter supplies, he added. She held his gaze. The roof beam is weak, she said. It will fall next winter. He stared at her. You can't lift it alone. The fire cracked. Miron set the cup down. I got nothing to offer, he said. Just this place, this life. She stepped closer. You offer truth, her voice low, firm. You did not leave me to starve. You did not take from me. You gave me work. You gave me a place. She pointed toward the rifle. You made this fit my hands. Closer now. You stood in front of a gun for me. Miron didn't move, didn't breathe. She stepped into his space. I am not leaving. The words landed clean, final. His hand lifted, slow, rough fingers closing around her wrist, holding, not stopping her, holding on. No, he said. His voice broke. You ain't. He pulled her in. She came without resistance, her head pressed against his chest, his arms closed around her, tight, solid, no space left between them. The fire burned low. The mountain waited. Morning came cold and clear. The stagecoach rolled out of town, heading east. Far below, two riders moved in the opposite direction, up the trail, back toward the ridge, toward the cabin, toward the place that almost killed them, and didn't. Karolina didn't look back. Miron didn't slow down. The path narrowed, climbed, turned toward the high country, and this time neither of them rode alone. If this story held you, leave a like and share it with someone who needs a story about not breaking. There's always another one coming up.